Today, I have a guest who had a smash hit #1 song and walked away from his record deal, voluntarily went in and said, "Hey, I don't know who I am. I need a bounce," and was let go from his deal because he asked to be let go. He had a big #1 song called "Love You Like That" that was on the radio kind of around the time of Florida Georgia Line, kind of really being big on the radio. And I saw him in Sacramento, California back at that time period. And fast forward now, he has gone through an incredible journey of self-discovery, of songwriting, of music. But this is more than just a music podcast. This is about entrepreneurship. This is about chasing a dream. This is about life, the human experience, being a parent, what changes as you get older in terms of what's important and what's not important. He was the first artist signed by Tyler Hubbard's new publishing company, and it's really cool to hear that story as well, because Tyler Hubbard was the lead singer of Florida Georgia Line, who is now out doing his solo thing. And Canaan is independent, but has that publishing deal where he's writing songs and getting cuts and that kind of thing. I know you're going to love this episode. It was one of my favorite episodes I've ever done, just because of the honest conversation, how cool Canaan was. We just get so personal to the point that maybe some tears come out. And it's a beautiful thing to share life. You know, if this podcast was to be summed up in one thing, it's the human experience, going through it together and talking about other people's experiences. So I know you're going to love it. Here is Canaan Smith. Walking through the last few years.
Sure.
Because you had the big #1, Love You Like That. And I kind of want to know what has happened since that, since then.
Yeah. Yeah, like I signed my first record deal was with Mercury Records, and that was in 2011, at the end of 2011, and they geared me up to go to radio in January of 2012 with a song called We Got Us. Most people don't know about because it never hit the top 40, but I still love the song. But I was just a young kid, man. I was very boy next door at that time in my life, you know, which nothing wrong with that, but I just didn't have myself figured out altogether. I had been writing songs since I was a kid, but as far as who I was as an artist, that was still being, you know, figured out. And it didn't go top 40, which was fine. It sent me back to the drawing board, basically. And then the next season, Mercury Records was acquired by Capitol, and EMI came over and basically took over, became Universal. Universal had 5 umbrellas, and Mercury being one of them. But Mike Dungan became the main guy there, and he and I hit it off really, really great right off the bat. He was going to drop me when he came in. He was kind of like cleaning house a little bit, and, you know, we had only had that one failed single, and I hadn't launched yet. And he told my manager, he's like, "I got to let your boy go." And my manager said, "Well, have you met him yet?" And he said, "No." He said, "Why don't you just meet him first?" And so he agreed to meet with me the very next day. And my manager at the time was really smart to not tell me the context of the meeting. I had no idea that I was about to be dropped. So I went in there just cheery and, you know, happy to be there and meet the new guy. And we really did hit it off. And by the end of that hang, we were toasting whiskey in his office, looking over the Nissan Stadium, dreaming about playing it one day, you know.
Wow.
And so got to keep that record deal, and that relationship was really great. In that season of life, I wrote Love You Like That with Brett Beavers and Jim Beavers, and Brett was my producer at the time as well. And that was Cindy Mabe, who now runs the label over there. She heard me play that song at CMA Fest, and that one was not even on the table as far as like an option to go to radio with. So that was her first time hearing the song, was live, and she thought, "Man, what is that one? We should talk about that." So we did. We started thinking about that as the next single, and we teased it at John Marks was running the Highway at the time, and he played it on the Highway, got my foot in the door. It like went gangbusters the first week, and we sold a ton of downloads off of just those few spins it got. And so we felt like we had something. And that turned into a big hit at radio, obviously. Like that was my first hit, which was really cool, man. That was a wild ride. To have a number one song at radio was like the coolest thing. It's what I moved to town for, you know. It's what my wildest dreams were made of. And so I got to play in front of some massive crowds at that time and tour with great, you know, people like Dierks Bentley and Kip Moore and Brantley Gilbert, you know. And then there was a season where I started to feel, we followed it up with Hole in a Bottle, which was it got to top 20, but it was a slower grind. And I was kind of already feeling a little lost in the shuffle because I just didn't have, the parts weren't right. You know, the formula wasn't right with my team, with the music I was making, with my personal direction and what I wanted to say. It was still all being kind of figured out. I felt like I was just trying to keep up, and I was a little bit pandering, looking for the next hit versus looking internally to you know, to really consider what do I want to say as an artist. And so I took a meeting with Mike Dungan and told him where I was at, and I told him I felt lost, and I'd love to go find myself if he would give me the permission to leave, and he did. And he respected where I was at, and so in 2019 I left the label.
So you voluntarily left your record deal.
Yeah, which I've had mixed feelings about ever since because I love that family. We've done so many cool things together. We made it to the top of the mountain together, but I started to feel like I needed to come down to figure myself out from here to go forward. And the best way to do that was to kind of regroup.
What's that ride like when you have a song that goes that big, that fast?
Well, it wasn't even that fast for me. It was a 51-week number. Oh. It took 51 weeks to get to number one. It was like this. It was tied for the longest song, the longest journey to number one at the time. It was tied with, I think, a David Nail song.
Okay.
So it was a long grind, but I mean, it was so fun, dude. I was newly married. Christy and I had literally got married at the end of August, and I started radio tour in September.
For people listening that don't know about radio tour, can you explain that?
It's crazy. You're basically you're a salesman for your product all around the country. You go to radio stations at the early show, basically, and you do on-air interviews. You play live on air, and sometimes 3 stations a day in different markets. And just you're always on the go. Your hotels and suitcases for as long as it takes. And I did countrywide radio tours, I think 3 different times. In the process of breaking as an artist, So I met all these great people. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, during that time when you're going, I immediately thought of a medical sales rep.
Probably not that different.
But did you have your manager with you at that time? And was it like, hey, what would it take to get our song on your station? Is it that kind of thing?
So manager not with me at the time for the radio tour portion. But there's always a rep from the label with you, a regional. So there's usually 4 or 5 different regionals that make up your label and are responsible for different regions: the Northeast, the Southeast, that kind of stuff, Midwest, West markets, and they all have their cluster of stations that they have relationships with. And so we would hit. We would do a week in the Northeast, we would do a week in the Southeast, and we would just kind of bounce all over the country for a week at a time. And so I'd have that regional with me. We'd fly to whatever market it was, hop in a rental car and drive around together, and it was so fun because you get to know, the ins and outs of the industry, the ins and outs of radio, and just get to know these other humans, in a really cool way.
Cool. So after that,
yeah.
Fast forwarding back to you hit the top of the mountain. You said it was 51 weeks?
51 weeks to get to number one.
You get number one, you get your platinum plaque, probably.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that was awesome.
I bet, man. And then you all of a sudden are on this kind of descent.
Yeah, it felt like that. I mean, we had another song at the radio, and it was working because it was top 20, but it was really slow, and I was already kind of frustrated by how long it was taking, and I was making new music in the background, right? So the album Bronco that had "Love You Like That" and "Hole in a Bottle" in it on it was already 2 years old while we were working "Hole in a Bottle," and so I've got all these other songs and this other music that I'm ready to put out as I'm watching my single slowly grind and maybe even look like it is going to come to a halt. And I'm kind of hearing advice from the label that it may not go all the way. And I just decided to say, all right, let's move on, which I think I did prematurely, to be honest with you.
But what happened after that?
And so then
because I
after that,
respect that decision. And I think anybody listening respects that decision where you have a realization and are honest with yourself, because it's hard to be honest with myself. For me, it's hard to have that inner dialogue where you're like, I don't know myself artistically right now, or what kind of music I should be making.
I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
It's crazy to say that, because I had just come off a huge #1 song, and I've got another one in the top 20 right now, and I was not happy. I wasn't. I was comparing myself and the speed of my single to the speed of those around me. I was constantly playing that comparison game and on their ass about why is it not happening, like what's going on, and just really missing the forest for the trees. Like my whole purpose had not been figured out for me. I was young, I was selfish.
How old?
I mean, I wasn't that young, I guess, but this was 10 years ago, so I was 32.
Yeah.
And
still young.
Yeah, young enough, I guess, but mentally, spiritually, this is the story for me, is that I feel like that coming down from the mountain and having to be faced with a dose of reality that it doesn't always go smoothly and you don't always get what you want was exactly what I needed. And God has a way of doing that in our lives. For me, He's done it over and over again. Where like I need pruned, bro. There's parts of me that need clipped out all the time, and back then I think that part of the reason I felt so lost and unhappy was like I just didn't have my purpose figured out. I thought my purpose was to make hits, to have hits at radio and sell a bunch of tickets. And as a product, that's what you want to do. But as a person, there's no fulfillment in that. You know what I mean? Like on the level of contentment and like fulfillment, like it's not the number of bodies you put in the seats. It's not the number of plaques you have on your wall. And I would show up to these places and almost like forget to be grateful. You know what I mean? Because I wanted more. And I think God,
the horizon always just kept getting pushed out.
Yeah, I guess so, And I think God was kind of like, all right, well, you got some lessons to learn, And
what was the hardest lesson?
I think the hardest lesson was like that I couldn't make it work myself, I couldn't, I didn't need to be like other people to be happy. And I think I was trying to do that. I think I was trying to be whatever would work, so that I could just keep feeding that machine,
you wanted to be the radio mold.
I wanted to do that radio thing and have success. And there's nothing, that's great. I think that's everyone's goal as an artist, to have success. But for me, I just was, it was misguided. It was definitely misguided. Nowadays, fast forward.
I sit at this desk and I coach people, and I haven't talked about it ever, but it's something that I'm just going to throw out there today, because if you're someone who maybe is into music as a musician and you're looking to have a career in the business, you're thinking about moving to Nashville, or maybe you already live in Nashville, maybe you want to write songs for a living or be a professional songwriter, and you want people to give you advice and you don't know where to start. I have 13 years of knowledge of Nashville knowledge, and then I have all this knowledge of sitting down and having breakfast with Vince Gill multiple times, and sitting down and doing podcasts like with Canaan and other country artists and people like Brian Koppelman, who's my friend, he wrote Billions, the TV show, and Ocean's 13, I think, one of the Oceans. He wrote Rounders. He's had an amazingly successful career, and it's interesting because some of the coolest conversation is the stuff we have outside of actually filming, and to be able to have the sponge brain that I have and to be able to be a resource to people is something that I pride myself in. So if you're interested and you want a little help along your journey, go ahead and just reach out to this email address, contact@Mavericks, which is a surfing spot in California, Mavericks, Mavericks, mediaco.com. Again, contact@mavericksmediaco.com, and someone will get back to you about potentially scheduling a one-on-one session. Let's get back to the episode with Keenan.
I show up and I'll play a show in a market, that you maybe have never heard of, and there's not a lot of people there every time. And I have a genuine gratitude every time going into it now, because I know how fleeting it all is. And so I try to be more of an impact at at whatever level. I show up and try to be grateful, positive, kind, and that always makes me happier. It always makes for a better show and happier buyers, happier crowds, and we have a better time. And me and my band, they've been with me the whole time. Almost 10 years now, and they've been on that same journey with me, and we've all been through different seasons together. We're all dads now. I've got 2 kids. They've all got a couple kids or more themselves, and I think our fulfillment, our contentment has been has been figured out, and it's not from the music. And so when we show up and we get to play music for a living, still after all this time, we're just grateful, and so that just makes it a whole different experience on the road, and it also makes me a better songwriter, to be honest with you, because
Where does that contentment come from for you?
identity, and honestly, not to go super spiritual on you, but this is how I feel. This is what I believe. It comes from the love that God has for me, and His plan, for my life. I think a lot of times I've been, and it tears me up because I've always wanted to do what I want to do, and stick to my guns and have something to prove. But sometimes what I want isn't what God wants. Sometimes there's a story behind the story, right? And sometimes there's another page that needs turned to get to that fulfillment. And yeah, I needed to fail to succeed. Because now I feel the most successful I've ever been. And I don't have a record deal. I got no songs at radio. But I got songs I believe in. I've got a family that loves me. I'm happy and grateful for my career, that I get to still play songs for crowds, no matter how big they are. I still have a chance to impact people on a human-to-human level. And to even be here today, I feel super grateful that you reached out. And I'm sorry I'm so emotional, but my purpose is to glorify God through my music. So however He sees that working out, sign me up.
Yeah. There's a freedom in that I see. Yeah. Just saying, you talking about that, the surrender we were talking about on the way to the coffee shop. And I was sharing a little of my story and saying how I just had to let go of the reins.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel like there was a moment where for you had a defining surrender moment?
Yeah. It was when my daughter was born and COVID hit at the same time. My daughter was, I think, she was born in late October and COVID was February, right? So she was 4 months old when the whole world shut down, and I was 3 shows deep on a headlining club tour when the plug got pulled, basically on live touring. Had that not happened, I would not have been around nearly as much, right? I would have been on the road consistently trying to grind it out and build this thing. And I'm so grateful that was out of my control. And I was forced to come down, and I was forced to be home, because that's where all my happiness is. It's all right there in my family, my children, my wife, and what we have together. So I'm really, it was an awful time for so many people. COVID was unprecedented, and I know that it was very painful for a lot of people. But that season of life, as far as the being home element for us, was a blessing in disguise, really, because it kept me home. It kept me in front of what I needed to be in front of, kept me chasing and pursuing being a better dad, being present. And it gave me, a chance to really reflect, to step away from just the routine. I'd been doing it. I've been touring and all that stuff for a long time. So when that's your routine and you're kind of like used to doing it, it's like hard to even step away and have perspective that's outside of that, And so it gave me a chance to kind of zoom out and hone in, and that opened up my mind and my world and my heart in ways that only God could have done.
Yeah,
changed the whole game for me.
Yeah, you mentioned that pruning process earlier.
Yeah,
and that seems like what was happening at the time.
Yeah. You got to tear to grow. I told you that on the way to the coffee shop.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that the tearing is something I'm okay with now and like humbled by, because I do think that the moment I started to give up the control is when I started to get happier, which is crazy. But it's true. Like I don't need everybody to know my songs. I don't need success in that, by that measure. You know what I mean? God's always had a way of providing for me. We've got countless stories about like times where I was ready to just quit over and over again. You ask my wife, I've had so many different conversations with her over the years about I'm ready to quit. I just need to go get a job somewhere. I'm tired of this. It's not going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And every single time there's a page turn. There's a God moment where he just kind of like makes a way and shows me where to walk, which door to walk through next. And that's the zone I'm living in right now. It's like, I don't know what this next phase is going to bring. I really don't. I'm really excited for the potential that it could bring, but I'm already convinced that there's a bigger story than just what I think my music, the success I think my music could have. There's a bigger story than that. There's a more impactful story, I'm sure. And it might not even be music. I don't know. I'm kind of open to whatever God has for me, to be honest with you, man. But it's making me feel like a better songwriter, and I feel happier just kind of giving up the not the dream, but giving up kind of the expectations a little bit. I'm independent now. I don't have a record deal. I'm totally independent. I got no team. I have a distribution outlet. 1RPM is my distribution. But man, I've totally just kind of stepped away and been stripped of power, really. Because there's no power and no team. It takes a team and an army to make a song work. I'm not on TikTok. I can't do that either. Something inside of me just doesn't, I can't do it. I don't know. I got no problem with it for other people, but I'm not a content creator. I'm a songwriter. Content creators they can't write songs. I can write songs, but I can't make content. And I'm not going to pretend to or try to get good at that so that my music can be heard. I don't need to do that. To be content. And I probably do need to do that to be successful, but I think God's got a way of doing whatever he's got planned and accomplishing his plans regardless of what the standards are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like for me, I'm like, just do the best, make the best music I can, write the truest song I can, be honest, be kind, let God do the work, glorify him, and see what he does with it. Like just try to be a good human, man, and then let everything else fall into place. That's kind of where I'm at in life.
I love that. I think that is kind of where I'm at too, like our convo earlier. And it's a very free spot to be in. And for me, it was having our first child as well that really took me to that point, you know. And I think that what you're doing, it reminds me of Rick Rubin a little bit. I don't know if you know much about that. But he's such a fan of music first, art first. Don't think about the fans. Don't think about them. Which is, I think, what the Nashville thing, the machine that you referenced, it's all about that. It's like, what's working right now on radio? All right, let's write that. Mm-hmm. Let's sign people that sound like this guy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it's all, and people have a single or they get a record deal and it might climb the charts. And if it doesn't do well, they get dropped or shelved or whatever, however it works, you know? But the fact that you're at a spot where you're doing music independently gives you that creative, artistic ability. And just listening to the 2 songs that you sent me, I was blessed in the sense that you were writing stories that were different, they were unique, and you went about them in a completely unique way. And I think that country music has always been about the story. Would you agree?
Totally. 100%. There's been seasons where it kind of waned a little bit and was more about the sound, but at the heart of country music is the story. You're right, 100%.
So when it comes to your life experience and bringing you to where you're at now, at what, age 42?
Yeah, I just turned 42.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, brother.
What does it feel like, and what is there a tension between I want to have success on social media or metrics or defining success as metrics? Is there a tension between that, like almost the flesh versus the spirit?
Totally, always.
Where it's like, no, I want to be independent and I'm going to do my thing and not worry about that. And then the other side's like that little devil on your shoulder that's like, make TikToks.
Totally. All the time, bro. It's all the time, and it's so exhausting. To be honest with you, it's so exhausting because I feel like to be in the game, I have to do things I don't have the capacity to do, and I'm not good at, and I have no desire to do. But what I can do that I am passionate about, I'm not sure is enough, right? So like there's this, that's why I leave it up to God, man. I try to do the best of this side of the equation that I can, the best version of me as a songwriter and an artist. And then how it gets out to the world and at what level it gets out to the world is kind of TBD at any given time, you know? So that's scary. But like I said, man, like there's never been a time in my life where God hasn't provided for my needs.
Yeah.
And in that process, I've also found a lot of contentment. And like having to need him to survive. I think that's where he wants us anyhow. It's where he wants my heart, the posture of my heart, is I think he wants me to be fully dependent on him and not what I can do, you know? So I just try to do the best that I can and leave the rest in his hands. And that's why there is that constant battle, because the human side of me and the competitive nature in me and just the pedigree of writing songs for this town and commercial radio, trying to, be in the game. Those two worlds are at war sometimes together, a lot of times together. But the best version of me is always when that's shelved. That whole mentality is just shelved and I can not have to worry about what's this going to do? How's this going to provide? How's this going to land, and who's it going to impact? Like, to me, I'm just more free from the confines of having to worry about all that right now. And that, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, I do. Because within every artist, there's that part that maybe it's ego, maybe it's something else that wants the world to see your art. And I think that that's natural.
And I still don't feel good enough. I never feel good enough.
Yeah.
I always.
Do you have imposter syndrome?
I don't know. Maybe. I feel like I have total confidence, but also like complete. I have total confidence, but also like complete self-doubt, and which is bizarre. That those two could exist at the same time.
Complete self-doubt.
Yeah, I really do. I don't feel good enough. I don't feel capable, but I think that that's where God wants me to be. You know, I think He wants, that way He can take over. He can be capable. He can be enough.
How does that play out in your life?
It makes me pray, bro. It makes me pray all the time. Like in my head, I'm always like worried for my family. You can't help but be, as a dad, you can't help but be worried. I've got a song on this next project on the album called Bad News that really dives into this. But I've got a constant worry as a dad for like what's the worst that could happen. And even when it hasn't happened, I'm still fearing that it will. And especially because we're in such a sweet season of life right now, I keep like, and the fear, the darkness when it sets in is always like, when's the shoe going to drop, you know? And I've been through some hardship in my life. You know, I lost my brother to a car accident suddenly when I was a kid. So I know that life can turn on a dime. And maybe that's where that fear is rooted, or how it came about. And I know that God doesn't like want me to live in fear, but I can't help it, right? So I'm constantly praying and asking for provision, protection. You know, I just want my kids happy. And I think that, to answer your question, being in this mindset makes me want to do better at the things that matter. And ultimately that spills into my art, my songwriting. Like I want to do better all the time. But like what I care most about doing well is being what my kids need me to be, and who my wife needs me to be, to show up for them. So yeah, there's, you know.
Do you feel like your circle has gotten smaller? And I'm curious if...
I think so.
If the OG blue check marks back in the day when you were at number one, you know, it's like, how many friends did you have then versus you fast forward to now? I would imagine your circle's much smaller, and you kind of find out who is really your friend. I've
had different seasons of life, and yeah, for sure. But I also have been super fortunate because I've had legitimate friendships, like genuine friendships the whole time. People who aren't in this town, who aren't part of the industry, and people who are. I think the circle that's gotten smaller is just the creative circle, like the cooks in the kitchen, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's proven to help a lot. It's only recently now that I started working with a producer again. The last few years I've just been self-producing because I think that was part of me figuring out what's next, you know. It was kind of like having to do it myself. But I just had the good fortune of a producer named Anthony Olympia wanting to work with me, and we had been writing songs. He's part of a band called Everett. They're amazing. They're so talented. So underrated, and I just love everything he is about musically and as a person. Anthony is just a genuine G, and we had been writing recently over the last couple of years. We'd been writing songs for Everett, and then we had a day on the books, and I showed up, and they were like, "Hey, what if we write one for you today?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool. You know, let's do it." And that's when we wrote Bad News, because they were like, how are you? And it started with a just simple question, how you doing? And those are friends that I felt like I could, divulge and share my honest story with, and it was that I'm worried, and so that's when we wrote a song from a real place. And at the end of the co-write, I was on my way home, and Anthony called me, and he said, "Hey," he said, "I know you do your own thing, and I love what you do. I just want you to know, like, if you ever thought about using a producer, I'd love the chance to get to work with you." And I said, "Let's do it," right on the spot. And 3 weeks later, we were in the studio and we cut 11 songs. And they're just, and that's the thing for me. That's a perfect example of, I don't know what's next, but God does. And I just try to go about each day leading with, all right, well, what's the plan here, and like get my head right, my heart right, be kind, and have this kind of open posture to know, like, so that he knows he can tell me where to go, and I'll go. At least that's what I hope. That's what I want to be able to do. And that's my goal, is to listen to where he's calling me. And examples like Anthony calling after the co-write to say, let's work together. I just knew right on the spot, all right, that's a God thing. Let's go. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. And the pieces just fell into place so easily. And now we've got a whole album of songs that are coming out. And the first 2 are coming October 11th. We're going to do a 2-pack. And then I've got some more scheduled releases leading up to the album after that.
I have to acknowledge you for putting out an album too, because I feel like the album for a while got lost.
Yeah. Or now there's like double, triple albums, and you put out so much at once, and that's amazing.
It's overwhelming as a consumer for me personally.
Me too. And there's nothing wrong with it. I don't know how they do it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't have the time to stay in the studio. I love being in the studio, but I don't have the capacity in my life and my responsibilities to stay in the studio as much as you have to be able to do that.
I think if we think of our favorite records, we probably think of a record that was 10 to 12, 13 songs.
For sure. Mine's Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. The self-titled album where he's got the chest hair and the denim jacket with the necklace on the front to back. That's one of the greatest things I've ever heard in my life. It's been so inspiring to me.
What about it?
Man, everything. He sings, the way he sings, it's like he's singing from the soles of his feet. You know what I mean? All the way up. Just everything he's got comes out. And the songs are just so catchy, but so unique, and like the way it's recorded sounds incredible. It's like top shelf everything, top shelf songwriting, performing. I just really just respect it so much, man. And I've seen him on the watched on TV his Austin City Limits show. I'd love to see him live. I haven't seen him live yet, but his Austin City Limits, the one I saw anyhow, was just so inspiring. It's like, I can't believe that one human has this much talent. Yeah. And and I think that's an 11 or 12 song album, There's nothing wrong with longer albums. I just think a record at this point in time, I can't do that because I don't have the capacity.
Oh, no, I think it's great. Now I want to get into that. I want to get into your record because my son and I, he is 19 months as we were talking, and
congrats, man. There's nothing better.
You. Oh, it's dude, amazing. And that was my moment of life change.
No doubt.
Was having the kid.
Yeah.
Best thing that ever happened to me. Took the attention off of me.
Boom.
Have kids, everyone.
That's it.
For real,
That's
dude.
What needed to happen for me too, brother.
Have kids. Oh, me and my son, I was talking about my son. We go to the record store, and he's into vinyl because I am. And so
at 19 months.
Yeah, dude. He loves it, man. And that all we listen to at home is records, like vinyl records.
That's so cool.
And it's fun to like pick a album that you've never heard of and
does he drop it on?
Yeah,
that's cool, man.
But all that to say is, when I think of a record, I think of the actual physical record.
Yeah.
Even though we call record a song, like at the Grammys,
right?
That's confusing, and then the album's different,
right?
Whatever. But the fact that you decided to do an album, it's 11 songs, it's perfect. And I want to get into what inspired the album. Did you see it coming, or was it one of those things where you had a bunch of songs and one day you were like, I need to do an album?
It was kind of like, for a season, I was doing one song at a time, kind of just treading water a little bit, like trying to every now and then stay in the game as much as I could, up to my ability. And so for the last 3 years, it's just been one digital single at a time. But I'm a songwriter in town, and I've been writing all these songs the whole while.
Pub deal
now. I was, I've had several different publishing deals. Right now, I'm with Halo. It's a brand new company that Tyler Hubbard started, and I'm his first signed.
That's awesome.
His first signed writer.
He seems like a cool guy. I've never met him.
Greatest dude, man. He's a genuine, kind. He'd do anything for you. He's a very real friend. You know, I can tell him anything. I can share my heart. He's like-minded in his faith and his desires, and how he wants to be a great dad and great husband. Got all the same DNA and desires that I do. And so we see eye to eye, and we also have been creatively connected since the college days, you know,
and on the radio at the same time too.
We've watched each other's journeys, and, you know, been buddies the whole time through it. And
that's beautiful. That was one of the things I was wondering in the back of my head was your small circle. I was like, I bet Tyler's one of those people.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Day one dude. We've been through some hard stuff together too. And
Tyler's Florida Georgia Line, the voice behind that.
Yep.
In case you didn't know, listening.
Yep. And now he's gone on to do his solo career, and he's off to the races with that. And I actually wrote his current single at Radio Park.
Oh, no way.
So, which is taking a long time, but
we got to get that to number one.
Be patient. I know, dude. That'd be amazing. But I feel really, really content as a songwriter right now, and I feel like at home with the crew that I need to be with.
Yeah, your creative crew.
Season. Yeah, it feels really good, really good. But so for the last few years before, this is a brand new deal. So for 3 years leading up to it, I had all these songs I'd been writing, and putting out as an artist just one at a time until that co-write with Anthony and Brent from Everett. And when Anthony called me and said, I'd love to work with you, I was like, let's do it. And I started thinking, I think I've got enough songs to do a whole album. Let's just do a whole album together. And I started combing through the last few years and some of the favorites that hadn't been recorded yet that felt like Canaan songs, you know. And
were they voice notes?
Well, they're full-on songs. Some of them demos, day of demos. And some of them just work tapes. Yeah,
work tapes.
Yeah, work tapes and whatnot. But
how many songs do you think you combed through?
It was just strange because I kind of knew which ones
very
quickly. I had a list of 11, maybe even 12. We might have shaved one off in the process somewhere. I can't remember, but it was pretty obvious to me which ones I wanted to do like really quickly. And I think it was the ones that resonated with me most lyrically.
That you could sing honestly,
I could sing honestly, and that meant something that rang a bell,
yeah.
that meant something to me. I wasn't thinking about, will this work? Some of the songs on there are not commercial at all, you know, but they resonate with me. You know, there's a song called No Mercy that I wrote with Drew Kennedy, and I just have always loved that song. I don't know if anyone's gonna know what the heck it's about or if it's gonna hit home with anybody else. But to me, it's I look at your tattoo, the ship on your arm at sea there and the waves. It's all about that. It's about being on a journey and tossed by the waves and looking for the shoreline and being convinced that one day you're gonna get there, and that when you do, surely God hasn't brought you all this way to lead you to barren shoals, you know, like there's got to be fruit. There's got to be something on the shore that he has prepared for me, you know, and that's what this song's about.
It's already my favorite song. That's my life.
That's how I feel too, man. And I feel always on the journey, you know, which again, it's like you have to give and take a little bit in that. because like I can't go out and make stuff happen if I'm surrendering to God's plan. Like he has to be the one to make it happen. My responsibility is at home and as an artist to do my best. But like that not knowing where it's going next and being okay with that and leaning into that is where I find the most happiness as a human being, as a father, husband, songwriter,
artist. And
all
so these 11 songs, you just knew them.
I knew.
When you got into the studio, did you have an inspiration where you felt like, I kind of want the record to have a certain feel?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, I knew that Anthony spoke the same musical language as me, just based on what he and his duo partner, the kind of music they make and the kind of songs he and I had been writing, and just conversations in the background about our favorite records and whatnot. So I kind of like was able to just fully express myself and also trust his expression as producer and leader of the band and kind of direction of the sound. Like our worlds were really complementary to each other, you know, our musical genetics, like we're a good match, you know. And I definitely had inspirations. The Nathaniel Rateliff album that I mentioned that sounds really sounds so good. It's like
I've never
very
heard of
warm.
him. I need to listen to
Dude,
this.
it's the greatest album, bro.
Okay, I'm going to today.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I'll just send you the link or whatever. But it's so good, and that was a reference sonically, reference.
I love that. It's the sonic reference is such a good starting point.
Yeah, that's what it had. Like for us, we got to start somewhere, and so that also led to okay, well, that probably means we need to get off the music row for this album and use a new studio, new players that I hadn't used yet. And there was some fear in that for me, like because you feel like your safety net's pulled a little bit when you have to go and try something new. But I trusted Anthony with that process. We ended up recording out in Murfreesboro at a detached studio behind someone's house. You know, it was a detached garage. Basically, he converted into a really great studio space. And we tracked full band out there, and Luke DeJanes was the tracking engineer. You know Luke?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Every song I've ever done for my own stuff, Luke has mixed and played drums on.
He's an animal.
I met him my first time.
How do you know him? That's crazy.
I met him my first time I came to Nashville.
What?
Yeah.
He's such an amazing
when you were saying Murfreesboro, detached, I was like, you're at
crazy,
DJ's
bro.
studio.
Yeah, he's been a game changer for me.
That's
like
so awesome, by the way, dude. I just got to tell you, Luke, and I don't know if you'd be mad at me for saying this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Luke has always gotten like artists and gave them like great deals and stuff, and always has been artist forward, and has always developed artists to a point where then they go into the music row thing and they're like, we want to use you, Luke, but sorry, I can't. And he's done it over time and time and time and time again, and project. And so the fact that you did your record there is really cool to me, because I know that was probably cool for Luke too, to have it there.
I needed it, bro. I needed him. I needed that space.
I
needed that so big, you know, and his mixes are incredible. I've never been more excited about the mix. Yeah,
he's the best mixing engineer I know.
It's incredible, man. He's so good.
Yeah, I listened to two of your songs last night, and it couldn't be more perfect on the mix side.
That's awesome, dude.
Did he master them or have some?
We had Will Borza master, and Will, I don't even know where Will's located. That was, I think Luke and Anthony had worked with him before on some stuff, and they really love his approach to mastering. And he gave us two options for each song: a classic and a modern master approach.
A warmer and a brighter, louder.
We went classic. The classics just sound really great. So
they do.
Yeah, dude, that space, that studio space, and the players that we used a guy named Jules Belmont on guitar and pedal steel. He plays both, and electric and pedal steel on the album. And Anthony played most of the guitars. Lex Price played bass. He's a Nashville cat, and I've used him before, but he's also not overused. You know what I mean? And I really just like his whole vibe and his approach. We used Steve Sinatra on the drums. And he brings something really great. We used his first take on Green, the song called Green. He was doing it. We hit record and we're doing a run through basically. And his first instinctual approach to that song is what we kept because it was so magical, bro. It was like, I felt like a kid at Christmas when I heard what was coming out of him. I was like, I would have never done that. I would have never thought to do that, but holy crap, that's exactly what this song needed. And that's a gift. Like, that doesn't just happen all the time with songs.
Yeah.
So like as it came together, little things like that were happening. And I was, I've been so content the whole way. I've been excited, and even now as they're about to come out, I always second guess my stuff right as I'm putting it out. I always think, oh, is this shit? Do I sound like crap? Is this horrible? Should I even put it out? I'm not doing that this time. And I think that's because a couple things. It's because I really do think it's great. I feel honest in it. And I'm trusting Anthony as producer. I'm not self-producing it. So I've had somebody that I trust musically let me know this is great. We don't need to go any further. This sounds done.
That's cool too, because a lot of times you can just keep
on going.
Yeah,
and the more you do, the more life gets pulled from it. It's like you
yeah.
kind of suck the life out. The more takes you do, and the more changes you make. And I tried to really just trust the process more.
And it's hard to have that point of view when you're yourself and you're looking inward.
Totally. Yeah.
Because you don't see things the way other people do.
Or hear them the same way.
Them.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And he has big ears. I was teasing. He has big ears.
Oh,
so
he can hear
They work
better.
really well.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure. But that's really cool that you can kind of relinquish control on the player side and new studio and producer and
mixing.
Yeah, mixing.
The whole thing is new.
That's beautiful.
It is, bro.
And collaborative. It feels collaborative.
Yeah.
Feels like I can breathe. Just like talking about it, I feel like I can breathe.
Yeah,
man.
Totally. And that's part of and also how beautiful is it that the songs that resonated most with me resonated the same way with Anthony as producer. Like sometimes you bring stuff to the table and that you think is, oh, this is so great. And maybe it's a turd, and you just, somebody's afraid to tell you.
Yeah.
But Anthony, the songs I chose were the ones he thought were the ones I should be doing. Right. So it just was, I don't know. You can't make that up, like that's a God thing too.
Yeah, it is, man. It's those doors being open. I imagine life is a hallway. This is my visual, but I see a lot of white doors on the right-hand side for some reason. And it's like, whatever one opens, this is just my philosophy on life. I'm going to walk through it. If a door opens, I'm going to walk through it.
I love it.
And to me, it's that trust in God. If I walk through it and there's like something that doesn't feel right, all right, close the door. But that's just been my thing. And it sounds like you've just gone through the open doors again and again.
Totally. And I've tried, because I've been on the other side of that equation too, where I've tried to open the doors that were closed. And only at this moment in time as an artist am I just walking through the ones that are open.
Awesome. So the name of the album.
The name of the album is Chickahominy, which is a river that runs through my hometown in Williamsburg, the Chickahominy River. We got a couple, the James and the Chickahominy River and the York River. But the Chickahominy River is the river I remember as a kid. My dad took me with his friend Jim Shuck catfishing on for the first time. And I still remember that feeling. I still see it in my head getting out of the truck. And it was just a really vivid memory that's been something I think about all these years. And that river, I wrote a song about it. It's called Chickahominy. But it feels like the album needed to be called that. Because I liked the idea of maybe piggybacking a little bit on my previous record, High Country Sound, which had a tribute to Virginia on it, and some of that hometown life coming through in the lyric. But this is a little bit of a piggyback, so it connects the dots a little bit, but it also sets a tone sonically. I think this song has a cool roots, ground floor, like kind of rootsy sound. The approach feels like sonically where I wanted to go with the album. So it's kind of a tone setter.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, to me, when I was listening to it and telling you earlier, it felt like that rootsy vibe, but it also felt contemporary. But it rode that line perfectly, in my opinion, where you feel you feel the breadth of the production, and you also feel the intimacy of the song.
cool, dude. That's great to hear.
And
That's
I've
really
only
great.
heard those two that you sent me, Bread and Honey and Green, both so cool, and story songs. And like, they're songs where you have to actually think a little bit and follow the story and interpret. And it's like, I had to listen again. I was like, what was that about? I'm listening again. I'm intrigued.
Cool.
And the song sounds great.
Thanks, man.
You know, the songs sound good. They're written in such a great way that they have the big choruses, you know, and the things that everyone wants in a song, where it's like, by the end I'm singing the choruses, but at the same time you go into these verses and you have all these little aspects, these little elements, the taste, the smell, the touch, the feel,
Cool.
you know. And I
Thanks,
think
dude.
that's what great music is made of. And I'm a big Eagles fan, and I think about their lyrics a lot and how they were so descriptive, and like peaceful, easy feeling. The intro is like, I like the way your sparkling earrings lay against your skin so brown. I want to sleep with you in the desert tonight with the stars all around.
Wow.
I got a peaceful, easy feeling. But you see it.
It's gorgeous.
You see it. And in those songs that you sent me, I saw them.
Cool, man.
So I'm really excited to hear the whole thing. And I think as a culture, we actually want authenticity significantly.
I think so too. I really do. And I've not been consistent with that. I've pandered a little bit as an artist. I'll be honest. But I feel honest in this whole album. I really do. I feel like every song's intentional. And I don't know that I can say that about all the other ones. You know, I can definitely see some of the times where I've reached a little bit beyond what's true, and that's okay. It's okay. Like I don't hate myself for it, but this feels the most honest from the top, about what I know, where I came from, what I care about, what needs to be said. Bread and Honey, for instance, is like, man, a really ugly truth and about a darkness that gambling addiction can destroy lives, and sometimes the culprit is these VIP concierges in Vegas, which means your job is to get people to spend more money, to keep them going, give them bottle service, give them boxing tickets, give them concert tickets, whatever it takes to get them to keep spending their money. And I was sitting down, and I didn't know this, but going into the co-write, but the girl I wrote that song with, Autumn Bisey, I was meeting for the first time that morning when we wrote, and we were just catching up and, you know, trying to get to know each other a little bit. And she tells me she used to date this guy who was a VIP concierge in Vegas. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And she goes through the whole thing and tells me. And one time I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty dark. And she was like, it was crazy. She was like, one time he got a call from the wife of this dude in the middle of the night, this dude who had just lost everything because he had kept spending beyond his limit. And the wife calls the concierge guy. I guess she got his number from her husband's phone and says, leave my family alone. You're ruining our lives. We just lost our house. We've lost everything. Leave us alone. And I'm like, golly day, that is crazy. And can we write that song? And can it start right there, that phone call? And so we call the guy, we call him Carl in the song. Carl felt like the right name for this guy whose job is to essentially like walk that line between trying to earn $1 and at the cost of destroying lives, like, I mean, he gets a Rolex in the process, but this whole family unit is being destroyed, and there's this crazy, you almost sympathize a little bit with him just trying to make a living, but you also hate the darkness of it. And I don't know, I never had an opportunity or a place on a record for a song like that until now. I feel like now as an artist, with all the freedom I have and with the kind of like, I have no compass, so I kind of just like get to write what I care about or what I think is interesting to write about and sing about. And that was one of those stories where I was like, I was moved when she told it to me. I was like, well, that's so real and raw and gross. Like, that has to be talked about. So we did. And there are other songs on the album that are the polar opposite as far as the heaviness. There's some that are just really great. Everyone needs to hear stories. There's one called Everyday Joe that's coming out on the second batch in December. And it's about basically ordinary people can do extraordinary things just by being intentional or kind. And the domino effect, sometimes they don't even see how it affects people. But Everyday Joe leaves a little extra money for a waitress one morning who needed it pretty bad, and he didn't even know it. And the moral of the story is, like, basically, you don't have to be a hero to accomplish great things. And if you're just making it your motive to try to be sensitive to the world around you and like to God's calling and where he's leading you, like the smallest thing can turn into the biggest thing in someone's life. And you never know, you might just be the next Everyday Joe. And so it makes a hero of the Everyday Joe, and it puts that on the pedestal. We need more of that, in this world. We really do. So
especially at this time.
Yeah, man, there's a lack of compassion almost, or like, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but like we were so quick to to care about what side people are on over just like how are they doing,
Yeah.
And so anyhow, that felt like another very important message, and something that I think we could have got cut on the road. Like feel like we could have pitched that and got it cut, but it hadn't yet at the point when it was time to record, and it meant so much to me, that song. I was like, I'll do it. I want to do it.
Yeah.
It speaks to me. So, and they're all like, they all do that in their own way. All 11 songs.
And you wrote all 11.
I wrote all the 11. Yep. They're all co-writes.
Yeah.
I wrote Green with Drew Kennedy. That's a crazy story.
Yeah, I want to hear that because you're going to play that for us.
Yeah, I'll play that for you. Green, yeah, man. So it's a fable. It's a made-up story about a guy who I can relate to. This guy, he's making $1, doing what he should, and he's growing. He's got a crop he's growing in the hills, and he's growing it by day, selling it by night, a couple ounces at a time. The DEA is on his trail. They catch wind of his operation, and just the night before they show up, a lightning storm strikes the trees around his crop and burns them up. And so the evidence is totally gone when they show up. He's saved by the grace of God. And the bridge says, I guess it paid off. I put plenty every Sunday in the plate. I ain't saying he's a stoner, but I do know Jesus saves. And it was like, okay, like, I'm not saying God's a stoner too, and that's why he saved my ass from getting busted, but maybe it helped that I tithed a little bit of that money on Sunday too, you know, and there's just like an element to that story where I feel like me as a human, I've been redirected many different times in my life, sometimes at the last minute where I needed to get on the right path, be it a wrong relationship or just kind of like hanging with the wrong crowd or chasing the wrong thing, my motives being wrong. Like God has a way of sometimes last minute even coming in there and rerouting and saving me from destruction. And that's what essentially this guy's story is. He's given a second chance, a second lot in life via a lightning storm, you know?
Yeah.
So I really like the story there, and I feel like I can find myself in that guy's shoes.
That's cool. So if you played that story forward,
Yeah.
would he grow another crop?
Oh, man. I don't know. I think he would probably, I bet he'd be exactly where I am in my shoes right now. It's like, where's the next open door? I think that might be his next move, is to see where, like, why'd you bring me here? Why'd you save me from that? To do what? What am I to do from here? Like, and there's a dependency on God.
Yeah.
And that's maybe that's the backbone, the spine of this album is a dependency on God's direction. Not just his salvation, but also his direction for my life.
Yeah. And in his heart, a man plans his step, but God guides his path.
Look at that. That's awesome.
That's one of my
I like
favorite
that.
scriptures.
That's a great one.
Because, like you said earlier, trying to control the results or the doors never works.
And I'm a control freak. I have been.
Yeah.
That has slowly been pruned away. Kids have done that. My kids have done that. I used to be I'm OCD to a degree as well, and I've had to really let go of a lot of stuff. My house is a lot of times a mess. My life sometimes feels like a mess, and that's exactly what I've needed to grow out of the control, and to surrender it.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel happy when I'm trying to do that anyhow.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of growth recently.
Yeah, man. It sounds like it. I love your vulnerability, and
You too.
I want to acknowledge you for that,
Thanks,
for opening up and sharing so much. I want to say one last thing, and I want to hear about everywhere we can go to listen, to share how we can help you.
Thanks.
Because I'm all about how do we help the independent artist.
Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? The person that deserves to be heard but doesn't have the machine behind them. And I want to see a resurgence of that, grassroots, straight up. So, bread and honey, love and money.
It's how you make it.
That's how you make it.
It's how you make it. Like the means by which you make and break love, make and take money. Like there's so bread and honey there. The story is like bread is slang for money, and love is love is love. I'm sorry, love is honey. All right, so
Okay.
Honey is slang for love, bread is slang for money, and in this storyline, you've got a guy who's willing to go as far as go and sleep with the wife of the recently deceased gambler, so that the inheritance she just received is another thing you can prey on. She's lonely, she's vulnerable. Go over there and try to make friends with her, get in her bed, and get in her purse at the same time. That's just gross, but it's true. It happens a lot, So at any cost, love and money, bread and honey, love and money. It's how you make it. Whatever it takes. Go as far as it takes to make a little.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The one of my favorite lines is, "It ain't cheating if you believe in hearts and banks were made for breaking." So if you're playing by your own rules and you're not guided by any kind of conscience, it doesn't matter at any cost. Go do whatever it takes to make a coin.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally, man.
So it's like
no moral compass.
No moral compass.
Yeah. And I think that it's interesting, but culturally, I feel like we have lost a lot of that.
Totally.
Not that everyone needs to believe what you or I believe, you know?
Yeah.
But there's some basic things that are just human, and I feel like it's interesting that you address it in that song in the way that you do, and that's very cool.
Thanks, brother.
Because it's basically what not to do.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's a real story. It's an actual. It's you know, the third verse we kind of invented, but the first two verses and chorus is all, you know, that's straight from my co-writer and her ex-boyfriend's experience.
Wow.
So it's out there. It's happening.
Yeah.
And
gambling addiction's a big thing.
That's a big thing. It's a big thing.
I think this song could touch people in that way too.
That would be cool. I hope it does.
Yeah.
I hope it makes them a little bit confused at first, because I want them to dig deeper. Like you said, it made you want to listen again to kind of iron out the story a little bit.
I was trying to figure out Carl. All right, so who's Carl?
Yeah, Carl is the VIP concierge. He's the devil on his shoulder. And he says in verse 1, he tells the wife that calls him in the middle of the night, he's like, hey, I might have been the devil in his ear, but your playboy ain't no angel. He's the one that pushed all his chips in. I just told him to keep going. His hands pushed him. You know, don't blame me. You know, so he almost like, he's almost justifying his gross behavior, you know, because he has no moral compass, and he's justifying it by, I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's really dark, but so is life. You know, you lift up the rug on some of the dark corners of life, and that's what you're going to find, some ugly truth.
Yeah. But you did it in a way that doesn't feel overly dark.
Cool.
Like, you know, when I listened to it in the production, I did not feel like it was a dark song.
Yeah, it doesn't feel ominous. It doesn't feel like like an evil darkness. It just feels like you feel sucked into the storyline, and it feels there's tension. There's a tension between this guy who's just trying to make a living, but the tension comes with the lives he's destroying, and like where those worlds collide is where I think the production makes you feel caught up in that collision.
Yeah. Well, Canaan, it's been awesome having you.
Same, Stephan. Thank you, buddy.
Explain it so everyone can know and understand when stuff's dropping, where we go,
cool,
and what we can do, and how to find you.
I've got a whole album, Chickahominy, coming out. It hasn't even been announced yet, but it's coming out January 24th. My first two songs from the record are coming out October 11th. That's 2 weeks from this Friday. Then December 6th, I've got two more coming as a 2-pack. And then
it's my mom's birthday.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry you lost your mom, bro. That's freaking awful.
Yeah. It's made me who I am.
Well, you've chosen to be you've chosen to use it in a way that is going to help other people. Because my first 5 seconds meeting you, we were already talking about that, and I could tell like you've been on a journey, and that God's been tearing away at you too, you said, and I hate that. I also admire and love the way you're choosing to share what you've been through in hopes that other people can take something from it, you know?
I appreciate that.
It's awesome, bro.
Man. Thank you. But December 6th is your
December
next
6th is the next 2-pack. The full album will be late January.
Okay.
And then, you can get it. I mean, I'm fully independent. I don't have a record deal. I have no guarantees for playlisting. And I don't do TikTok. So
and for
on
people,
paper, it is not going to be heard.
Yeah.
but
release days can be the worst days of your life too.
But I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, because you do, and it's our job as listeners and fans to support. And so, what can we do? What does that look like? I know you have a website, you have merch, but I feel like people need to be sharing the song on socials.
That's what I would love more than anything is if it resonates with you, talk about it.
Yeah.
That would be the most beneficial to me because, again, I don't have the platform by the numbers or even the actual platform itself with TikTok. I don't do that. I'm not in that game.
Yeah, your Instagram feed is like you and your family and like going camping and like your life, which is beautiful.
Well, thanks, man.
It's not look at me and my music.
I try not to. I mean,
But that just says something about you, I guess is what I'm saying.
Cool.
So you have like Canaan Smith releasing a record, not the label, walked away from a record deal, went the independent route, turned into a completely different man. God's molding you and trimming you. And now you're coming out with songs that are from your heart that you believe in for the first time ever. And you're not with the machine. And for people to understand, just real quick, like money buys you spots on radio.
Yeah, we got no money behind this.
Yeah, and when you have no money behind something, it really requires that grassroots sharing, and word of mouth is the best form of marketing, as we know. And
Totally.
So you trust your friends, and if you hear it and you like it, let's support Canaan. Go to a show. Are you going to be out?
I'm playing shows throughout the year consistently.
Okay.
We've got a few left on the books for this year, and then next year I'll be doing the same. I'm just doing all one-offs right now. No tour, like I'm not touring with anybody else. I'm just doing all my own shows around the country and at any level, you know. I'm really just kind of, like you said before, just kind of going through the doors that are open at the moment. And so people can help me open those doors just by, if they like what they're hearing, talking about it, sharing it, be that voice for me on the socials that I'm not being, that I can't be at this stage in my life. I'm not good at doing it.
I like the honesty there.
I'm not good at doing it, and I don't like doing it. I'll be honest, 100%.
And it's dumb that we live in a world where all of the young kids signed on Music Row are being told to grow their socials. It's like spend more time on your phone trying to come up with creative ideas to get views than making music. You know, I can't stand that.
I'm not a TV channel. I'm not a script writer. I'm not an actor. I'm not an entertainer I'm not a video entertainer. But I can write a song and I can sing a song, and I stand behind my live show. Me and my guys, every single time. Doesn't matter if there's 10 people in the crowd or 10,000 people in the crowd. We give the same show every night to whoever is there. We love what we do. We're so thankful to be there and still be doing music for a living all these years later, that it just comes out in the performance. We're stoked to be there, and we will continue to be that way. So if you want to see the show that, you know, that hopefully will resonate in a way that you can, you know, take with you, come and see my show.
To know Canaan Smith is to see him live.
I think so. I really do. And this album, I think you get to really know about what I care about, and then to see me live. Yeah, I'd love for people to share it and to buy a ticket.
Yeah, that's what we will do, everyone. And it's at Canaan Smith.
Yep, at Canaan Smith, CANAAN Smith on Instagram.
And then website, CanaanSmith.com.
Yep.
Sweet. And then same on all of the DSPs, digital, or like
it'll
iTunes.
Be wherever you can find, wherever you listen to music.
Yeah,
it'll be
Spotify.
Available. Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll be praying that you get playlisted too.
Thanks, man.
Because it's interesting when you submit through that artist portal there on Spotify, and you don't know.
No.
And you don't know who's going to listen
where it's going to land,
or where it's going to land.
And I don't know how it's going to land as far as when people do hear it. Is it going to be something they care about and want to hear again? I don't know. But I love how it turned out.
But you've let go of the results, which is very important.
Yeah.
And and trusted God. And I think that's what we all have to do. So.
Well, there's more purpose for me than the music,
Yeah.
I know he's doing something bigger. I know he wants to use me to impact people on a level that is not just connecting over the music. It's got to be more. It's got to be more.
Yeah.
I want it to be more. That's my goal. So we'll see what he has in store, brother. Thanks for giving it a chance to be found.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, man.
Okay.
Let's hear a song.
Let's do it. You see the flames, 2 counties over the night line struck that hill. Those oaks that burned for 300 years old before God had them killed. And last time I looked, the good book didn't have nothing against no trees. So you wonder why I start my morning praying on my knees, singing, Lord have mercy on it. Lord, oh sinner, Lord, I see you working, burning up my timber, turning all my pride and lust into ash and smoke and dust. I was just trying to make a little green. Hell, I never made a dime off a copper still, but that grass is sold like gold. Grew 10 foot high in the holler by day and by night, soul, my soul. A couple ounces at a time, they got theirs and I got mine. Lord have mercy on it. Lord, oh sinner, Lord, I see you working, burning up my timber, turning all my pride and lust into ash and smoke and dust. Turns out they caught wind of me down at the DEA, and that fiery bolt of lightning was a streak of saving grace. I guess it paid off. I put plenty every Sunday in the plate. I ain't saying he's a stoner, but I do know Jesus saves. Oh, yeah. Lord have mercy on it. Lord, oh sinner, Lord, I see you working, burning up my timber, turning all my pride and lust into ash and smoke and dust. I was just trying to make go. Lord have mercy on it. Lord, I sinner, Lord, I see you working, burning up my timber, turning all my pride and lust into ash and smoke and dust. I was just trying to make a little green.
Now that's a dope song. And this is a wrap on today's episode with Canaan Smith. Thank you for hanging out, being here. Please hit subscribe, like, share. It really helps. The majority of the people that listen to this podcast are not subscribed. It's like 90%. It really helps if you subscribe. It's not that hard. Come on, man. We'll see you back here soon, and stay safe. If you have any questions or you love this podcast, just DM me and I'll say what's up. Peace.